Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. For those of you who are new here, my name is Donna, and for those of you who are not, thank you so much for coming back. I really super enjoy the fact that you guys clicked on my video. I know 100,000% you don't have to, so it warms my heart that you do. I hope that you guys are having an amazing day. It is snowing here. How is the weather where you're at? And apparently my lighting system is wonky. It has been this way for days, and I'm not exactly sure what's going on with it. I am today going to venture into my makeup collection. The reason why I am doing this is because I have seen a lot of videos out recently where people are doing their makeup collection videos and then a makeup inventory video telling how many they have of certain things. I didn't know which to do. I think I'm going to do the makeup collection videos first and then do a makeup inventory video, or maybe vice versa. My makeup inventory is on 3 different pieces of paper, so I need to gather it together and put it into one nice consolidated little booklet. I have everything going into an Excel spreadsheet, which I'm not exactly sure is the best option to do. And I'm not exactly sure whether I should be counting everything in my sample drawer as well. I know that I would count my backup drawer because those are full size, but I'm not really sure whether I should be counting my backup or my sample drawer as well. So I was going to start with a makeup collection video series. Last year I started one of these and I kind of got derailed and stopped, I think, like halfway through my collection. So this would be a brand new, updated, 2 years into this makeup collection video series, and today we are going to start with the fun stuff. We're going to start with palettes. So if you're interested in that, please keep on watching. Okay guys, this is where I keep my palettes. You guys can see they're kind of on a bookshelf, and next to that bookshelf is my backups, but I have my lashes, my masks, my backups, my samples are all in there, and then just some miscellaneous stuff up here. I also have my Starbucks mug collection there. Over here I have makeup bags, but there's also some like skin stuff here, and in this section here, more skin stuff. I have that blue bag there is my Harajuku. I got it in with like a perfume set a long time ago, and I've actually got like my foot care stuff in there. This one over here has some stuff that I got out of FabFitFun. That blue there is my Laneige water mask that I use at night, and in that basket there is some stuff that I got from FabFitFun. Okay, the rest of this all here, and then these right here are all of my palettes. And I am actually going to start up here with these guys. So the first one I have here is my e.l.f. Velvet Touch eyeshadow palette. This I got on a whim. I think because you got a free gift with purchase from e.l.f. when you did it. I love that it has a mirror. It's pretty nice. And this one is the Island Breeze, just 6-pan eyeshadow palette from e.l.f. This is appearing really like kind of yellow actually on camera, when really it's kind of a really stellar green. The next one I have up here is the NYX Ultimate Brights. This is brand new to me. It hasn't even been used. Like, what am I doing with my life? Are we focused here? I am really excited to touch this palette. I just haven't touched it yet. It's fairly new to my collection, but it and the one right before it, I haven't tried that one either. This is ridiculous, you guys. This one I also haven't touched. This is my Stila Eyes Are the Window Shadow Palette in Body. I think this guy was $8 at TJ Maxx, and like I couldn't necessarily pass that up. But this is what the colors look like. I think it's really pretty. Yeah, so I went ahead and picked it up. Again, haven't even touched that. This one is still in its packaging. I haven't figured out what I'm doing with this yet. I may give it away. I'm not really sure. This is the Tarte Double Duty Beauty Eyeshadow Palette. It's got a pretty reflective surface to it. And this is what the palette looks like inside. It's just a very neutral Tarte palette. I think that it is really pretty, but like I said, I haven't figured out what I'm going to do with this yet, which is why I keep this on there so it doesn't accidentally get touched or broken. I might give it away in a giveaway. I'm not really sure. I think I got it in a FabFitFun box, and just, I have so many of these shades that I just haven't used it yet. The next one here is this Crown Pro Glam Metals. It has a guitar-shaped mirror up here. This I got in a BoxyCharm, not my favorite palette on the planet. I always have said that this palette should have come with 4 shades in it. These two are very similar. These two are very similar. These two here are also very similar. And these two are very similar. And on the eye, they just don't look different enough. So it should have come with one of these shades, one of these shades, one of these shades, and one of these shades. Maybe one of those shades. So 5 pans is what this palette should have been, and instead it's 9. But not my favorite palette, and it's all shimmer. There is no matte in there whatsoever. The next one I have for you guys is this one. It is my Winky Luxe Kitten palette. I also received this in a BoxyCharm, and for a long time, this was my go-to palette. I loved this palette, and still do. Like, it's been a long time since I reached for it, but that's part of the reason why I do my Palette Roulette series, is so that I get some use out of these kind of palettes again, palettes that I love. I used to put this shade here in my brow bone daily. It's such a beautiful shade. The next one I have is the Winky Luxe Mermaid Kitten palette. I just love the packaging on these guys. It's so cute. So this is that palette. I did pick this up from Ulta, and yeah, haven't even touched it. I just am ashamed that I haven't even touched so many of these. This shade I keep getting over and over and over in my subscription boxes, so I have like 2 single Ursula shades to go into giveaways. This is, as everybody knows, the Laura Lee Party Animal palette. We did get this in a BoxyCharm. It has a mirror on it. Again, not my favorite palette. It's not a horrible palette, but it's not my favorite. The colors aren't bad. They're just really hard to work with and almost completely unblendable, if I'm being honest. This is the next one. It is my palette this week. It is the Smashbox Cover Shot in Cabana. Not my favorite palette. Too, like, pastel-y, in my opinion. I'm having a really hard time with it, honestly. But that is it. It is the only Cover Shot palette I have. I got it in an eBay purchase that I made. This is the Pure Midnight Masquerade palette that we got in a BoxyCharm. Again, not even opened. Haven't even touched it. This is what it looks like. It does have some cheek product in there, which I forgot it had in it. And then some eye product in there and a small mirror. I imagine it would be a great, like, go-to travel palette, but Pure and I don't necessarily have the best relationship, so I don't know how I feel about it yet, because, again, I haven't even used it. This one, I actually have done a palette roulette on already. It is the NYX Grind, Machinist Grind palette, and it looks like this. You know, I will link the palette roulette. I really loved this shade. I really love this shade. Like, I really enjoyed this palette, so to speak, but it's just super hard to work with. It's not my favorite formula, to be honest. I'll link the palette roulette. I have used it a few times. I'm not willing to declutter it yet. Not willing to declutter much yet, but that's where I'm at with that one. This one is the, my goodness, reflective Milani Gilded Desires. This I also have a Palette Roulette on. I will go ahead and link that. It's got a giant mirror, and then these are the shades in this palette. Not a bad palette, but I got it brand new and then started using it, and like some of these shadows are just super, super soft. This is a beautiful shade here. Next I have my ColourPop My Little Pony palette. This was one of my favorite palettes for a long time. This is what it looks like inside. This is another palette that I received in BoxyCharm. It's obviously well loved. I do like this palette. It's a pretty palette, and you can come up with all kinds of looks in that palette. This is my ColourPop Cute AF, or Yes Please palette. This is what the inside of the palette looks like. Again, it's pretty well loved. I do or have used this palette quite extensively. It was my version of the Natasha Denona Sunset palette before I started purchasing Natasha Denona, because there was no way I was going to purchase Natasha Denona. And then I have my Sleek palette. This one is Under a Spell, is what the name of it is. And this is what it looks like inside. I have only used this palette once, and I'm sure that you can see the colors I used, this one and that one. I haven't used any of the other ones. It does have a nice little mirror. And for $8, like, I think these are $8. For $8, truly, they're pretty amazing. So this one is a new palette. You might have seen it in my most recent Ulta haul. This, or for February, my February Ulta haul. This is the Morphe 9-pan palette in Oh My Gorge. And this is what it looks like. It does have a really large mirror in it, and those shadows are just so beautiful. They called my name, so I had to pick it up. Okay, this is my Ace Beauté palette that I got in a BoxyCharm. You open it up, and this is what it looks like on the inside. I have swatched this palette, but I have not used this palette. But the color scheme seems pretty reminiscent of, say, Modern Renaissance. I have these colors all over in my collection, which I think is why I haven't used it. This is my Smashbox Full Exposure palette. This is a very well-loved palette. It was one of my first palettes. This is what it looks like. It is just a neutral palette. It's one of the only neutral palettes that I have in my collection, and it was probably the first palette that I ever purchased, and it is so old. It came with a dual-sided brush that I still have in my collection also. That's pretty actually one of my favorite dual-sided brushes when I decide to use dual-sided brushes. This is the second palette that I ever owned. It is the Smashbox Double Exposure palette. And when these shadows came out, the call to them was that each one of them could have a different color scheme to it. So, like, if you wet them, certain things would happen. And it's so funny because I thought it was so innovative. And here we are, you know, years later, and I know that you can wet just about any shadow and turn it into anything that you want. But it came with this little double exposure like map of what could happen if you wet the brushes, or if you wet the shade, the brush, what would happen to each of the shadows. This one is the Protégé palette. I also received it in a BoxyCharm. It is by Suva Beauty. I received it in my Boxy Luxe, actually, I think last time. It's got a mirror, and this is the colors in that palette. Again, it's a palette I have not yet used. So this is all your browns here and yellows, the yellow tones, and then you have all your rosy tones here. I don't think that this is a very versatile palette, if I'm being honest with you, but I think it would be a good palette to say travel with, just because you can use these two as your highlights as well as eye shade. I do have the Tarte Rainforest of the Sea, Volume 3, which I got in my recent BoxyCharm. And this is what this looks like. Just a nice shimmery neutral tone palette. I've heard it's beautiful. There's only one matte in it. The next one is this Rainforest of the Sea Volume 2. I also received in a BoxyCharm, probably my first BoxyCharm, I think it was. I am not a fan of this palette. I've used it a couple times and it really kind of sucked, actually. So I don't use it very often, if at all. And then I got this one. It is, it is the Tarte Make Believe in Yourself palette. And I actually rather love this palette, but never use it. It's also only got one matte, and it is this one that my little daughter decided to dig her fingernails into. This highlighting shade is a beautiful highlighting shade, so I'm really glad I have this palette. I think my kid picked it up for me from my birthday, right after I got into makeup. I mean, it's a really pretty palette, some great shimmers in it. I just hardly ever pull for it. So next we have my two Viseart palettes. I picked these up in a Muse Beauty Pro Buy Two Get Two sale and actually have a video talking about them. This one is the Sultry Muse palette. It is all shimmers. The Viseart shimmer formula is not my favorite. I don't find it to be a very pretty shimmer, wet or dry. It's just a meh kind of shimmer. But this one is the dark mattes. Their mattes are probably my favorite mattes. I love the tones in this palette as well. You have some really pretty oranges, a nice like squash orange over there and a pumpkin orange here. And then you have some good red tones, some great green tones and blue tones and purple tones and brown tones. And for a long time, these two browns were my go-to crease colors. I will tell you that these are typically $80 a piece, and I think that the mattes are probably worth it, but the shimmers definitely aren't, and I wouldn't spend $80 on these palettes. I got them, like I said, the buy two get two from Muse Beauty Pro, and when you do that, I got both of these and two Esom brushes for $124, I think it was. The next one in here is the NYX Air. This one I picked up for $6 at TJ Maxx or Ross. I can't remember which one, but this is what it looks like inside. I thought these colors are just super unique. Like, I do not have one of these colors. I can't think of, maybe this pink, but I can't think of another one of these colors that I have in my collection as it stands. But as you see, I have never used this palette. I'm excited to try it, but I just haven't. And the next one I have is the Natasha Denona Mini Sunset palette. Honestly, like, a lot of people I hear talk poorly about her mini palettes, but I have to tell you, like, I don't mind her mini formula. And if it is different, it is different from her full-size formula, but her mini formula isn't bad at all. This is a beautiful palette. This red right here is just stunning. And this one right here, the color is Halo. Right? Yes. Halo is such a pretty brow bone or inner corner highlight. Oh, so pretty. $25 for that guy. This is the Violet Voss HG Fun Size palette that I got from IPSY. This is what it looks like. I haven't touched it. I just recently got this from IPSY, so I'm actually pretty excited about this palette. It's super cute, super fun. I find that Violet Voss is one of my favorite formulas on the planet. I've got the 4 Jaclyn Hill Morphe palettes from the Vault. This one is the... Which one is this? This one is the Bling Boss. This is what it looks like. Obviously, you guys can see I haven't touched it. I haven't touched any of these. This is the Armed and Gorgeous. This is what that one looks like. It's the orange and red and green one. This one is Ring the Alarm, which is more like red and brown toned. And then this one is the Dark Matters, which is the blue and green. I was super excited to pick this bad boy up. I love that they each come with a little mirror on them. All right. Next we have the Kat Von D Alchemist palette. This is what the exterior looks like, which I have found to be beautiful. And then the interior is just your blue, green, purple, and pink hollow shades. I used to use this a lot. I just don't find myself reaching for it anymore. Probably because it's in the very back here. The next is my Pure and BoxyCharm palettes. A lot of people gave this palette flack, but you can see mine is pretty well loved. I don't mind this palette. It's a pretty decent palette. This shade right here, not my favorite shade, is a black with purple glitter in it. I don't know if you guys can see that, but it is awful. But other than that, it's not a bad palette. Then we have this one, which I got in a BoxyCharm as well. It is the Pretty Vulgar Nightingale palette, and this is what it looks like inside. I love the Pretty Vulgar, like, old-time, like, theme. But, again, you guys can see, haven't touched this palette. I'm just really not a cool tone fan, I think, and this palette is cool tone, so I have a hard time with it. Then I have the Revolution Beauty Reloaded Division palette, which is a dupe for the ABH Subculture palette, and I actually have a video on that. I will go ahead and link. This actually is not a bad palette. I actually rather like it, and was surprised because it was the first Revolution Beauty palette I had that I liked. This is my first Revolution Beauty palette, and it is Mermaid Forever. These pans are super tiny, and I actually really don't remember whether I like this palette or not. I think I've used 2 or 3 shades out of it once, and decided it was crap. So I threw it in the back of my makeup menagerie here, and haven't used it since, but Palette Roulette, that is what the purpose of that series is for, and maybe I will like it, maybe I won't, but I actually got another one with this that I ended up giving to my daughter. I hated it, so I gave it to my daughter, and she likes it. So these are my two Too Faced palettes. I have the Too Faced Chocolate Gold palette, and this is what it looks like. This is my favorite shimmers on the planet. I love these shimmers. Now, granted, I haven't used this palette very much, and I wasn't going to purchase this palette, but when I went into Ulta and swatched this palette, I had to have it. That's how they get you. I had to have it because I swatched it, and it was just so beautiful. And then there is this one, which is the Too Faced Sweet Peach palette. This was the first collection that I ever saw that I had to purchase the whole collection of. I actually rather love this palette. I have pulled off some pretty amazing looks with this palette, and it might not seem so because it seems super neutral, but all these colors are so pigmented and beautiful. Too Faced, it had my vote with this Sweet Peach palette. Like, I don't like chocolate, so I never really got into the chocolate bar stuff, but loved the peach stuff. Okay, this cubby is my next cubby to go through. I have my Juvia's Place, my Violet Voss, my ABH, my Natasha Denona in here, and a few other like little sporadic guys. These two are my pride and joy. I have the Natasha Denona Lila palette, which my kids bought me for Mother's Day, I believe, last year. I actually have a Palette Roulette on this as well. I will link in the cards. This is what this palette looks like. Again, super well loved. It's just a really beautiful palette. I can't really say anything horrible about this palette. I love it. The next one is the Natasha Denona Star palette, and this is what this one looks like inside. Again, I've been using this a lot lately, and I love it. I love Natasha Denona's formula. Everything blends so easily. These guys are all my Juvia's Place. So I have, oh my gosh, they're so tight in here. I have the Juvia's Place Masquerade palette. My daughter bought this for me for Christmas, and it is huge, and the pans are huge pans, and I maybe could have even done with the mini. Their pan size is just enormous. So that is the Juvia's Place Masquerade palette. The Tribe palette by Juvia's, and this is what that one looks like. It's a beautiful green and brown one. And then I have the Festival palette, and whoops, this is what that one looks like. It's pinks and oranges and just, oh god, so pretty. I love the pan size on these guys because you could use them for blushes, you can use them for shadows, you can use them for highlights. You can get any size brush into these guys. Alright, then I have the Magic palette by Juvia's, and this one is like one of my favorites. I love that it has cool and warm tones in it, and there's like 2 rows of each, and there's like a good matte to shimmer ratio in here. It's a really nice palette, and this is the mini size, and this is the size that the Masquerade palette should be. The next one I have is a Freak. This is a new one to me. I purchased it at Ulta not that long ago. I haven't even used it yet, but this is the shades in that palette. I kind of really dig this orange and this, yellow and this green. Really love those. Then I have this one, which is the Saharan 2. And I do not own the Saharan 1 and have actually kind of no desire to own it. That is this one. I have swatched it. I haven't actually used it on my eyes yet. I have this one, which is the Deuce by Juvia's Place. I got this one and then was actually not super impressed with it. But I do love the colors, and for a pop of color, this is a good palette. But, God, it's just so hard to use this palette. Then my last Juvia's Place is Zulu. And this is what this one looks like. And again, just so beautiful. Such a beautiful palette. Alright, these are my ABH palettes. I do have Modern Renaissance, which I'm sure everybody has seen at this point, correct? We've all seen this one, right? It's a beautiful palette. One of my first palettes when I first started getting into makeup. I really enjoy this palette. Next we have Subculture. And of course that is the controversial palette of, what, 2016, 2017? I can't remember, but I love it nonetheless. And I have Prism, which looks like this. That is also such a pretty palette. I love it. And then I also have Norvina. This palette isn't necessarily my favorite. It's not a bad palette, but it's not my favorite. I have a Palette Roulette on that as well. This is my Violet Voss HD palette, which I got in a Boxy Luxe. I haven't even touched it, which makes me sad because Violet Voss is one of my favorites. My Violet Voss Flamingo palette, which when you open it up looks like this inside. It's a really beautiful palette with some really beautiful shadows that are very, very unique to my collection anyways. I have the Like a Boss palette, which I just did a collab with my friend Lisa on, and that is what this one looks like. My Huda palettes, I have the Rose Gold Remastered palette. I didn't ever pick up the first one. That is what that one looks like. Matter of fact, I thought it was gone forever, and then she came out with the remastered one, and I was so elated because I really wanted the first one. And then this is my Huda Beauty Desert Dusk palette. That is what that one looks like. It has seen some love. And then my New Nude, which when I saw it, I had to have it. It is just such a beautiful palette. I have used this. I have. It just doesn't look like I have, but I have used it. This is my Becca Volcano Goddess that a friend picked up for me. You guys just probably saw this recently in a haul. This is what that looks like. I find that the colors are just so much more vibrant than they show up on, you know, the website. So I am so happy to have that in my collection. Then I have this one by Ofra. This is the Ofra Free Spirit palette, and it came with just these single shadows, but the rest are cheek products. I should pull those cheek products out and put them into a magnetic palette up top in my cheek drawer, because I always forget I have them. Then I have my Morphe Boss Move palette that was a gift from my friend Rochelle, and that's what that one looks like. One of my favorite palettes. It is well loved. Then the last one in this cubby is my Morphe Jaclyn Hill palette, and we've all seen this one, right? I also have a Palette Roulette on this one. I will just link the whole series down in my drop-down box. You guys should go watch it if you're interested. I go through all these palettes. Alright guys, we're in the home stretch. So this is the last cubby of palettes that I have, and to start this cubby I do have my magnetic palettes in here. All of the shadows in this palette are Sydney Grace shadows, and I love Sydney Grace single shadows. This palette is so heavy it's falling apart. If you guys haven't yet tried Sydney Grace single shadows, you really should. I mean, her single shadows are so pretty. This color here is probably one of my favorite shadows on the planet. These are also Sydney Grace. Like, I went crazy during her Christmas and July sale and purchased so much stuff. I've also got some, like, you guys will see them eventually, but I've also got some cream shadows from her and some like cheek products from her. So this one has ColourPop mostly, and then these ones down here are ABH shadows. That is what they look like. These two here are Makeup Geek, and then I've got, I'm not sure what these are. These are Hikari. These are like Elizabeth Mott, and gosh, I don't know. And then these are Ofra shadows. Ofra? Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yep, these are Ofra. These two big guys here are Ofra shadows. So those are my single shadow palettes that I keep in here. And then this has got my Kat Von D Saint and Sinner palette. I did a palette roulette on this and realized that this just, man, when this palette first came out, it was like my pride and joy. I loved this palette, but I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that I spent, you know, a good chunk of money on it. So, and it was one of the first formulas that I really tried besides Smashbox, and I thought I loved it. And after my palette roulette, like, I decided that I don't know that I love it so much, but I am going to hold on to it because it does have some standout shades in it that I do or am particularly fond of. So the next one in here is my first Palette Roulette series palette, which is the Life's a Drag palette by Lunar Beauty, which is Manny MUA, and I love Manny. So this is that first palette of his. It did come with a dual-sided brush that is a pretty fantastic dual-sided brush. It also has a mirror on the palette, which isn't amazing, but I love this palette. It's one of my favorite palettes. The next two I have in here are Carity palettes. I do have the matte and frost palettes. These are 21 shadow palettes, and this one is the matte one. It's a pretty decent matte formula. I don't find it to be a horrible formula, and they're really inexpensive. So, and then this one is the frost. I do like the frost formula. However, some of these are a lot more chunky than others, and some of them are a lot more shimmery than others, and some of them just really don't perform very well. This one is probably my favorite in here, and it's glittery, and I don't really prefer glitters, but I really do like that shadow. Next, I have the Urban Decay Born to Run palette, and I know that a lot of people did not like this palette, but I actually really love it. It's seen a lot of love, but also hasn't seen a lot of love. Like, there's some shades on this end that are not even touched. This one here actually is a beautiful color, but I hate it. I hate using it. It is the worst shade in this palette to work with. If I, you know, had to pick one that I couldn't stand, that one would be the one. And that's sad because that was one of the reasons why I bought the palette. This is my Take Me Back to Brazil palette. I just bought this one not that long ago. It is by BH Cosmetics. And this is what it looks like. I'm sure we've all seen it. Nice, pretty rainbow palette that I haven't even touched. This one is the Lunar Beauty Greek Goddess palette. You know, I love Manny MUA, so like I had to purchase it. Even though it's just kind of a meh palette, I can't wait to try it. I bought it when it first came out, and I haven't touched it yet. This is my Lorac Pro palette. This is what it looks like inside. It has been used, but with Lorac colors, you don't really have to, you know, go in super deep with them. So it doesn't look used at all, and I don't go ham in my palettes ever. This one is the Ocean Sunset palette. I did this in a Palette Roulette as well and found that I really just don't like this palette. I am not interested in giving it away yet or, you know, finding a new home for it, but I just don't know that I love it. And then I also got this one, which is the Mountain Sunset palette, and that one looks like that. This is my Alamar Cosmetics palette. This was a brand started by Gabby, who works at BoxyCharm. I love this palette. This is the Reina del Caribe. I don't even know if I'm saying that right. I'm probably not. Volume 1. She just recently came out with the Volume 2 palette. I really love this palette and thought about getting the Volume 2 palette because of how much I love this palette. These mattes are amazing. Those shimmers are crazy. I will put the BoxyCharm unboxing in which I unboxed this palette in the cards because like I swatched them and like could not even. It was crazy. I don't know that I will pick up the second one though. This is my Urban Decay Electric palette. This is a pressed pigment shadow, or pressed pigment palette. They can't call it a shadow palette because those colors stain the eyes, and the people that monitor all that say that you cannot call it a shadow palette if it stains the eyes. It is determined that it is not eye safe. So, but I wear these shadows on my eyes all the time and find no problems with them. My partner in life is vacuuming, so you may hear all that. This is the Crown Pro Fuego palette, and this is what it looks like. This is also a BoxyCharm palette. It's not one of my favorites. All these colors look so similar that they actually turn out very similar on your eyes, and there's not a whole lot of versatility with this palette. I mean, it's a good palette for like a pop of like a deep red or whatnot. This shadow here is actually a really pretty shadow, but it's just not one of my favorites. My daughter loves it. I might give it to her. This is a pretty amazing palette. This is the BH Cosmetics Weekend Festival palette. I love the packaging on this guy. I also just really quite like this palette. This is what it looks like. It is, I've done a palette roulette on this. It is just a stunning palette. Like, I came up with so many looks from this palette. It's just, it's so pretty. BH Cosmetics is really, like, I don't know what their shadows were like before this last year, but I've purchased quite a few palettes this last year from them, and they're just pretty amazing. This is my Volcano Goddess palette. You guys might have seen this in my most recent haul. A friend of mine from work purchased this at Target or TJ Maxx for me, so this is what it looks like. I think that the pictures online do not do it a whole lot of justice. These three shadows here are just so much more vibrant than they look like they are online. So I'm pretty pleased to have this as part of my collection. This is my first BH palette. This is it's my Ray Ray palette, and it actually has face product in it as well, which I keep forgetting it has. But this is, let me see. This is what this palette looks like. It does have a nice mirror over here, but it's got some eye shades and some face shades, and it's just a really pretty palette. It performs really well. The dark colors in here are like not my favorite darker shadows, but they work. This shade right here shows up on your face a little more yellow than I like. It's not as frosty as it appears in the pan, which is nice, but the eyeshadow that looks just like it is the same way. It's pretty. It's just very neutral, so I don't use it very often. Alright, this is my Tartist Pro palette, and this is what the palette looks like. It is a really pretty neutral palette. It's mostly mattes. All of these shadows over here are all matte, and then there's these 4 shadows here which are supposed to be shimmers, or this one here is like a green-red duochrome or brown-red or whatever duochrome. It's not, I mean, it's a great palette. I've gotten a lot of use out of it. It is one of the first palettes that I purchased, but it is not my favorite, if I'm being honest. Their mattes are really good. I do like their mattes, but they could stand to pop a few more, you know, colors into their palettes, which is part of the reason why I bought this one. This is the Tartist Pro Remix palette. I love the packaging of this, the scenery on the front, the splatters on the front change depending on how you shift the palette. This is that palette, and it is mostly shimmers. So there are, I think, 3 mattes in this palette, and they are these 2 colors here and this one here, and the rest are shimmers or satins. I haven't even tried it yet. I purchased it because of Mel Thompson. YouTuber made me buy it. I haven't used it yet. I'm excited to try it because Tarte is a brand that I have become pretty fond of, but I haven't tried it yet. This palette is the Graveyard Girl Swamp Queen palette, also by Tarte. My daughter loves this palette, and for a long time I didn't use this palette because I didn't want to ruin this palette. But this is what it looks like. The red over there is this one over here is a really pretty blush shade, so my daughter really likes this palette. She may end up with it. I just find that it's pretty much the same shades as every other Tarte palette, so I don't know a whole lot about Bunny, but I did like the palette, and I actually got it in an eBay haul, so I didn't really even have a choice in getting it. This is the Urban Decay Spectrum palette, and this is what the exterior packaging looks like. I love the exterior of this. These are raised jewels, really cool. The inside of the palette looks like this. It was, I guess, my first rainbow palette. I've only used it a handful of times, and that's sad to me. It's actually just not my favorite Urban Decay palette. I don't know what's different about these shadows from other ones, but it doesn't really have the pigmentation that I got used to with the Urban Decay Electric palette. So, and that's kind of what I was expecting from this one, and it didn't perform to those standards. I only have a few more palettes to go, and they are actually palettes that are in my backup drawer because I'm just not sure what to do with them. So that is in this white cabinet here. But this is the Profusion Merlot Eyes. I got this in a Secret Santa exchange with my friends on Instagram. This is what it looks like. It's just, I've never tried Profusion before. These shades look very similar to shades that I already have in my collection time and time again. So I'm just not sure I want to use it. So it sits in my backup drawer because I don't know what to do with it at this point. My daughter wants it. She'll probably end up with it. This is a palette from the brand Peak. This is interesting. It only has 2 eye shades in it, which are these 2 here. The rest is, this is brow product, that's cheek product, but I do have it in here as a palette backup for God knows why. I don't know if I'll keep this either, but I got it in a FabFitFun, and you guys, this palette retails for like $53, and I don't really quite understand that, if I'm being honest. I don't think I'd ever pay that much. I know I wouldn't ever pay that much for it. And the last 2 I have here are just quads. Let's see if I can get them out. And they are 2 of the Kat Von D quads. I have the Shade in Light Plum and the Shade in Light Rust. I did pick these up from TJ Maxx for like $7 or something, but that is what they look like on the inside. Let's flip that one over. That is what they look like on the inside without opening them up, because again, I don't know what I'm doing with these guys yet. So they're still in their packaging. They're just in my backup drawer. So obviously I haven't touched them, but that is the end of my palette collection. I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know what you guys think of the palette collection. Let me know what palettes you have that I might also have. And I can't wait to use all these in my Palette Roulette series. I hope that you guys are staying tuned for that Palette Roulette series, in which I will use every single one of these palettes at least for a week at a time and decide then whether it's a palette that I really love still or a palette that I could potentially let go of. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. Please consider giving me a big thumbs up if you enjoyed this video. And I hope that you enjoyed it enough that you're considering subscribing to my channel. I would really love to have you along for this crazy midlife crisis ride of mine. And see you in the comments section, which I am still quite actively involved in. Thank you guys so much again. Until next time, bye guys.